The cold winds of fate howled through the ancient lands of Albion, a place now lost to time, where the sun and moon seemed to betray the very earth they once graced. It was a world on the brink of chaos, a place where the old gods whispered of doom and the new ones had yet to be born. In this forgotten era, before the dawn of the age of Christ, a king named Lear ruled over a land teeming with both splendor and shadows. Lear, a monarch of the distant past, was a figure as grand as he was flawed. His kingdom, stretching across the wild and untamed lands of what would later be known as Britain, was a realm of towering cliffs and vast forests, where the air was thick with the scent of the sea and the whispers of the ancient druid. Yet, despite the might of his rule, Lear faced a crisis that threatened to tear his world apart. The first signs of this impending disaster came from the lips of Gloucester, a nobleman whose life was steeped in the mysteries of the heavens. Gloucester had observed strange phenomena. The sun and moon were darkened, and the stars seemed to tremble in the sky. He saw these cosmic disturbances as ominous portents, warning of a world turned upside down, where sons would rise against fathers, and kings would lose their grip on the very fabric of their realm. As the kingdom of Albion faced this looming crisis, the king himself made a fateful decision. In a moment of misguided pride and a desire for peace, Lear decided to divide his vast kingdom among his 3 daughters. It was a choice that would set in motion a chain of events with consequences more devastating than any eclipse or darkened star could foretell. The eldest daughters, Goneril and Regan, flattered their father with words as sweet as honey, but their hearts were as cold as the winds that swept the coast. Cordelia, the youngest, spoke the truth, a truth that cut deeper than any blade. For her honesty, she was cast aside, a princess without a land, her fate as uncertain as the stormy seas that lashed the shores of Albion. In the shadows of this unfolding tragedy, a figure emerged who saw the world for what it truly was. A fool, a jester, a man whose words held more wisdom than the courtiers who surrounded the king. This fool, with his pointed tongue and piercing insight, foresaw the chaos that was to come. He spoke of a future where the realm of Albion would be thrown into great confusion, where the very foundations of society would crumble. The fool's prophecy was a glimpse into a future that seemed to stretch beyond the bounds of time itself. He spoke of a distant age, a time when the great wizard Merlin would walk the earth, a time that had not yet come to pass. For the fool, like Lear and the rest of the ancient world, was trapped in a moment where the future was a dark and unknown path, a path that led to the edge of the abyss. And so, the stage was set for a drama that would echo through the ages, a story of a king, his daughters, and a land caught in the grip of fate. In this world, where the old gods still held sway and the new ones had yet to be born, the winds of change blew cold and fierce, carrying with them the promise of a world that would never be the same. In the storm-torn land of Albion, far from the heart of Christianity, there were no prophets. The first great prophet of Britain, Merlin, would not appear until 13 centuries later, during the Christianized reign of King Arthur. Merlin's prophecies, recorded in the same history that tells the story of King Lear and his 3 daughters, were widely read and believed, even through the Civil War era. These prophecies were often seen as having come true, adding to their mystique. In Shakespeare's play, the fool, trying to see into the future, stands on the metaphorical shoulders of Merlin. Yet, even with this advantage, the fool sees only the obvious. Then comes the time who lives to see't, that going shall be used with feet. This prophecy, while true, is trivial, and lacks the profound insight one might expect from a true seer. The storm that rages during Lear's wanderings is so fierce that it seems to foretell the end of the world. Lear's cries to the storm, spit, fire, spout, rain, invoke the biblical images of the flood and the fires of judgment. Gloucester, witnessing Lear's suffering, believes the world is coming to an end. This great world shall so wear out to naught. Lear's experiences after the storm follow the path of the Last Judgment. He imagines himself as a judge, summoning the guilty to face their crimes. However, in his mind, justice and injustice become interchangeable, and he forgives everyone, even those who have wronged him. This blanket forgiveness is far from the justice promised at the Last Judgment, where sins are weighed and judged. Lear's journey continues as he is brought to Cordelia's camp. He believes he has died and been resurrected, entering a paradise where he is cleansed and restored. He pricks himself to make sure he is not dreaming, thinking he belongs in hell for his past wrongs. Cordelia, his loving daughter, revives him with a kiss, offering a moment of redemption. The final scene of the play is a stark contrast to any hope of a happy ending. When Lear enters carrying Cordelia's lifeless body, the onlookers are stunned into silence. Kent and Edgar, witnessing this, question if this is the promised end or just a dark image of it. The sight of Lear, an old man who has endured so much, holding his dead daughter, is a painful and heart-wrenching moment. This scene, while not visually resembling the grand and triumphant images of the Last Judgment, evokes the deep sorrow of the Pietà, where Mary holds the body of her dead son, Jesus. The image of Lear with Cordelia in his arms is a poignant reminder of loss and grief, without the promise of resurrection or redemption. The play's setting in a pre-Christian time allows for a level of suffering that would be unimaginable in a world shaped by the promise of salvation. Both Lear and Gloucester, old men who have unjustly disowned their children, face unimaginable torments. The extreme suffering of these characters is meant to be unbearable to witness, and the gods remain indifferent to their plight. At the play's end, Edgar, reflecting on his own and his father's suffering, acknowledges that while some might find this a fitting conclusion, for others it is an unbearable tale. The final image of Lear with Cordelia is a powerful and tragic reminder that in a world without divine intervention, the end can be a dark and painful one. In King Lear, Shakespeare takes us on a journey through extreme suffering and tragedy. Edgar, one of the key characters, narrates a series of miseries that mirror what the audience has experienced through the play. He talks about the suffering of Lear, Gloucester, and even Kent, emphasizing how the play amplifies sorrow to the point of almost being too much to bear. The play itself seems to be aware of this excess. Edgar, for instance, struggles to find words that can adequately describe his own misery, using phrases like basest and most poorest, and worst, lowest, and most dejected. This stretching of language reflects the play's own stretching of the limits of tragedy. The suffering in King Lear is so intense that it pushes the boundaries of what the audience can endure. One of the most striking examples of this is Cordelia's death. A.C. Bradley described it as the extreme painfulness of the play's catastrophe. There is no historical, conventional, or plot-based reason for Cordelia to die. Her death is so shocking that in 1681, Nahum Tate rewrote the play to give her a happier ending, and this version was preferred by audiences for over 150 years. Samuel Johnson, a famous critic, admitted that he found the shock of Cordelia's death so great that he could not bear to read the play again. Modern readers and critics have tried to make sense of Cordelia's death by introducing the idea of redemption. They suggest that her death is necessary for atonement, much like the sacrifice of Christ or the martyrdom of saints. Lear's final words, "Look on her, look her lips, look there," are often interpreted as a sign that he sees a glimmer of life in Cordelia, a hint of redemption. This reading allows Lear's tragedy to end not in despair, but in a kind of ecstasy or unbearable joy. However, this interpretation is problematic for modern, secular readers who do not see the play through a Christian lens. For them, the play's setting in a pre-Christian world means that there is no promise of redemption or a better future. The world of King Lear is one where time seems to be shutting down, and the characters have no access to the hope of salvation. For Shakespeare's audience, who lived on the other side of the BC AD divide, the play asks them to suspend their belief in a Christian future and enter a world where such hope is absent. The BC setting of King Lear allows for the extreme suffering and tragedy to unfold without the need for justification or alleviation. The play is set 8 centuries before Christ, far from the date that matters most in Christendom, the Incarnation. This distance from the Christian timeline gives the play its unique tragic intensity. The characters are in a world where the end is near, but there is no promised salvation. The audience, on the other hand, is asked to temporarily set aside their faith and enter this pre-Christian world, where the rules of tragedy are different. In this way, King Lear pushes the boundaries of tragedy to their limits, creating a world of extreme suffering that is both intense and deeply moving. The play's setting and the characters' experiences challenge the audience to confront the darkest aspects of human existence, without the comfort of a redemptive ending. In the deep sadness of the final scene of King Lear, the actor playing Edgar, the future king, speaks lines that carry a heavy weight. "The weight of this sad time we must obey. Speak what we feel, not what we ought to say." These lines are a mix of sorrow and duty, acknowledging the gravity of the moment while also suggesting a hidden relief. Even in this tragic setting, there is a sense of something new beginning, a shift from the bleakness to a new order. The actor in this moment has to balance the character's grief with the audience's need to move forward. A slight change in posture, a deep breath, or a steady look can help convey this transition. It's a delicate balance, as too much emotion can overwhelm the audience, while too little can seem insincere. The challenge of performing such a moment is not just about the words, but about the unspoken communication between the stage and the audience. Shakespeare's plays often blur the line between the world of the play and the real world, a concept known as metatheatre. This is especially true in the early modern period, where the terms used to describe the art of acting were different from today. Words like drama, actor, and performance were not commonly used. Instead, the focus was on playing and players. This vocabulary reflected a broader understanding of entertainment that included a wide range of activities, from street performances to religious plays. The idea of play in the medieval and early modern periods was not just about entertainment, but also about the ethical and social context in which it took place. Play was seen as a form of recreation that had its own rules and purposes, which could vary depending on the situation. For example, a jester's performance at a royal court was different from a religious play performed during a festival. Both were forms of play, but their contexts and purposes were distinct. In the York play Christ Before Herod, the tension between earnestness and play is vividly illustrated. Herod the king is presented as a boisterous and self-important figure who engages in a series of increasingly absurd games with Christ, who remains silent. Herod's attempts to mock and taunt Christ are met with Christ's quiet dignity, creating a dynamic that is both humorous and profound. The audience is invited to see the irony in Herod's theatrics, and the seriousness in Christ's silence. This interplay between the two characters is a key source of the play's dramatic power and audience engagement. Similarly, in the play Mundus et Infans, the rapid shifts between different roles and the alternation between serious and playful moments create a rich and varied performance. The actor playing Mundus must move between being a king, an advisor, and a more comedic character, while the actor playing Infans must shift from a newborn to a mischievous youth. This constant change keeps the audience engaged and highlights the flexibility of the actors in their roles. The early modern stage was a place where the boundaries between the fictional and the real were constantly blurred. Actors were not just performing roles, but were also playing with the idea of performance itself. This self-awareness is a hallmark of Shakespeare's work and is evident in many of his plays. By understanding the historical context of playing and the ways in which actors navigated these roles, we gain a deeper appreciation of the complexity and richness of early modern theater. The play, As You Like It, is a treasure trove of theatrical playfulness, a quality that Shakespeare uses to engage and delight his audience. The title itself hints at the play's playful nature, inviting the audience to take pleasure in the performance. Shakespeare does not shy away from making the play seem less serious, often drawing attention to the familiar narrative and its self-conscious routines. This self-awareness is a central part of the play's charm, making it a sustained improvisation that revels in its own theatricality. One of the most prominent aspects of this playfulness is the play's focus on entrances and exits. The frequent use of the phrase, "Here comes," signals the arrival of new characters, emphasizing the importance of timing and presence on the stage. This focus on entrances is not just a narrative device. It is a practical concern for actors, who must navigate the challenges of making their entrances work smoothly. Shakespeare's awareness of these practical aspects of performance is evident in the way he writes these moments, providing ample opportunities for actors to showcase their skills. For example, when Orlando bursts into the forest feasting scene, his dramatic entrance is quickly deflated by the calm responses of Jax and Duke Sr. This moment highlights the importance of style and timing, as Orlando's attempt to create a dramatic scene fails hilariously. Similarly, the interaction between Rosalind, Jax, and Orlando in Act 4, Scene 1, showcases the playful jostling that can occur when characters enter and exit. Jax, recognizing the shift in the scene, cleverly exits with a witty remark, leaving the stage to Rosalind and Orlando for their romantic encounter. The play also explores the concept of love at first sight through multiple characters, each time with a different flavor and comedic potential. Rosalind and Orlando, Celia and Oliver, and Phoebe's one-sided infatuation provide a range of romantic entrances, each adding to the play's overall playfulness. The final entrance of Rosalind and Hymen, the god of marriage, is the most dramatic of all, transforming the play into a grand masque, a fitting conclusion to a play that has been a series of delightful theatrical games. In As You Like It, Shakespeare invites the audience to join him in the fun of theatrical performance. The play is a celebration of the art of acting, where entrances, exits, and the interactions between characters are not just part of the story but a central theme. By focusing on these elements, Shakespeare creates a rich and engaging experience that is as much about the joy of performance as it is about the plot and characters. This playfulness not only entertains but also deepens our understanding of the human experience, showing that even in the most serious of moments, there is room for a bit of play.